takes an axe sometimes, a feather in the sunshine and bad weather. It's a matter of getting deeper and any way you can. All this.
Hi, I'm Jeannie and welcome to Jeannie on the Beat, Talking with the Talent, Ann Arbor's newest talk variety show, where I'll bring you up close and personal with fabulous writers, performers, and other fascinating folks. My guests tonight are Callan Loo and Tamara Sutton, who together run a new business in Ann Arbor called Peaceful Crossings. So welcome, Cal and Tamara.
Thank you, Jeannie.
Thanks for having us.
It's great to have you here.
It's great to be here.
So Cal, can you tell us about Peaceful Crossings? What is it? What do you offer?
Sure. Well, Peaceful Crossings is a relatively new business. We're based in Southeast Michigan, and our business is to bring tools and services to the public to do their own holistic legacy planning. So we believe that our society as a whole has a kind of an unhealthy approach to death and a very reactive approach to planning a legacy, and we're trying to change that.
So, Cal, tell us about your background. How did you get involved in something like this? You know.
Sure. Well, I was born and raised in Northwest Ohio, and right out of college, I went into a position doing technical sales and marketing, and I did that for about 22 years.
Wow.
But over the last 10 years or so of that career, I started to feel empty. It felt like there was no real spiritual, nutritional value to what I was doing. I was just chasing the almighty buck. So started thinking that I'd like to do something different, something that had a little bit more meaning. And as it happened, the last company that I worked for shut down operations in the Midwest, and they laid me off.
Oh, perfect timing.
Yeah, great. But what that did, it opened another door for me. Now I have a small severance package and enough time to actually do what I really wanted to do. And that's where Peaceful Crossings came in.
So have you had this idea for a long time of something that you wanted to do, or how did you
Not
come
really.
across this of all things,
Yeah. It was, the urge and the want to do something more meaningful. My original idea was to open a martial arts studio.
Okay.
Right? So you could, teach kids character and values, and in addition to strength and self-defense. But I sat down with my girlfriend over dinner one night, and we talked about other things that we could do, and she just put out a tremendous spark of an idea. And she had the idea of creating life celebrations, right? Helping people celebrate their lives instead of mourning somebody's death. And as we brainstormed the ideas, more things came to it, and that became Peaceful Crossings.
Wonderful. And Tamara, what is your role in Peaceful Crossings, and how did you come to be part of the team?
I received a great phone call from Cal mid-December, so not all that long ago, and we got together and had a conversation about my grief coaching that I do. He wanted a grief coach in-house referral. And in the process of that conversation, we started to talk about some things that I had in my mind, having coached people through their grief, and realizing that when you get to the end of your life, it is important to have felt that you've lived your life. And I felt that what Callan was talking about really filled the circle, completed the circle of life, and that if you're planning your life and you're being intentional about your life and really being proactive, that when you get that in your mind and you start processing this, it also causes you, if you're planning a celebration at the end of your life, that has to get you to living your life more fully. And Oprah says, for every death that there is, it's an invitation to live more fully. And I love that. I think it says it beautifully. So there's a consciousness that comes about in going through the process of the legacy kit and filling it out and thinking about your end-of-life wishes, your family, peace of mind.
So all that really has helped to bring more quality of life to life while we're here and have healthy and,
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Buddhists have a saying to always sit with death on your left shoulder. So, just to help us have that awareness. So it sounds kind of like what you're saying.
True, and we wanted to change the view of death. And normally it's approached with great fear. But when you approach it with a little more consciousness, awareness, and people who are terminally ill have an idea when they're going to die, but it can happen to anyone at any point in time. And so why not live large? Why not create your bucket list and really get at those things that you wanted to do with your life right now?
Okay,
I think it's generally true that when you shine the light on something that fears you, it's not as much to be feared, right? Once you really open it up and examine it and you understand it, you're not as afraid anymore. And what we're doing is we're having people think about this stuff and really internalize how they want to do it, and people end up feeling better.
Yeah.
Right?
They feel some
Right.
relief, some peace about
Yeah.
that. So now your tagline reads, holistic legacy planning for your peace of mind.
Right.
So can you tell us a little more about what that means, and what do you mean by legacy planning? That was a new term to me, legacy planning. What does that mean?
Sure. I mean, actually, the first three words are really entertaining to put out there for people, right? Holistic legacy planning.
Yeah,
Most people will
holistic.
just
What?
they give you a blank look,
Right,
right? Because
right.
they don't get it right
Right.
away. But if you break down the three pieces of it, holistic means you're treating the person or their life as a complete thing, a complete entity. And when we plan out a legacy, we're coming at it from the perspective of what's in their mind, what's in their heart, their body, and their soul. So that's the holistic piece for us. Legacy is also something that can be confusing. Most people think of legacy as money. There's a dollar sign associated with it. So the magnitude of your legacy is directly proportionate to how much money you're leaving somebody. And we don't see it that way. We look at a legacy as the complete impact you have on somebody in your life and when your life ends. And that does include dollars, but it also includes the positive and negative energy that you put into the life and that you take back out. So the planning piece is important, because instead of letting somebody do this for you after you've passed on, we're encouraging people to proactively plan it out while they're still here. So that's the holistic legacy planning.
So how are your services that you offer different from a traditional funeral home that people are familiar with?
Sure. That's what most people are familiar with, because
Right.
it's what they've been exposed to.
Exactly.
And most people have a history, or at least some experience of going to a funeral, and that's what you think is supposed to happen. The reality is there are people out there who do really good funerals, but there are also a lot of people out there who don't do really good funerals. So what we do is we're not competing with funeral homes, right? We look at funeral homes as our partners. We try to create a legacy, and we try to plan things out well in advance while people are still healthy and actively living. And then as you've got this plan in place, over time, as you move closer to that final step, right? That's where the funeral homes tend to get involved. So we will actually sit down with somebody, plan out what's going to happen in their life celebration. So we've actually thought through the music, the food, and everything, like the party that's going to happen at the end of their life. And we'll work with the funeral home, and we'll work with the pastors to make it happen.
So that's an interesting term, end-of-life party.
Yeah, that's the
Do you find that that's appealing to people in general, that they
it's
like thinking about having a party instead of a funeral,
right. There's a generation that is in their 80s now that are very traditional, and many of them in that generation say, just I don't care what happens. It doesn't matter to me what happens. Don't do anything. And which is so sad, because there are loved ones who want to celebrate their life, and grieving is part of that preparation, part of finding the significance in that individual and the life that they lived, and the significance of them in your life too. So if you don't do anything, there's a hole that's left there. It's incomplete, that life. And so we love the idea of celebrating and, really thinking about, find out more about this person. But sadly, it's usually done when you go through the attic or you go through their closet after they're gone.
After
and you
they're gone.
find out, oh my gosh, he was in, the war. He never talked about the war. Oh my gosh, he flew a plane. I didn't know he flew a plane. All of those, many, many, many endless number of things that you may not know about this person. So one of the things that we think is important about that generation and for the families with them is to find a way to communicate this and to open them up to the idea of any one thing, anything at all. Well, my dad finally said, okay, yes, you can have a ceremony of some kind, but it took forever.
He kind of broke him down.
It's a lot of work.
Yes,
Wore
he
him
just didn't want to
down.
talk about it. He just wasn't really willing to admit that he was going to die. He's 87 years old. He just in the last 2 years started talking about the fact that he was in World War II.
Wow.
And now loves telling these stories now that he's opened up a bit.
Interesting.
Well, following this generation are the baby boomers. And you're not one, you're too young, but but I am. And we want to do it our way. We have all along. We have been the very vocal, make it happen generation. And so this is no different. In fact, this is perfect for baby boomers that really want to take charge. They want it their way. I have a brother that's 60 years old. He said, this is a great idea. I love this. I want Robin Williams to do my eulogy. I want all of my friends flown in from the West Coast. You take care of all the details. I want him to go on a charter, fishing trip and play golf at the plantations. And I want him to, on and on and on. And he said, and I'll fund it.
Wow.
So all of
That's
that would
amazing.
plug in perfectly to this particular tool that we have offered here in the Legacy Kit. That's part of it.
Right.
Another really good example is we have a business partner and a customer she's a baby boomer, right? But we talked to her about planning her wedding at the end of her life, right? So think of a life celebration plan as planning a wedding just for a whole different purpose. She lit up. She was ready to do it right then and there.
So so languaging like that sometimes really hits home and it really appeals to some people. Maybe not to everyone, but to some people.
Right.
Usually once people start to think about their lives and talk about it, and if you ask a few key questions, and anyone can ask these questions and get their loved ones beginning down the path, but things like, what are you glad that you did in life? What do you feel was your greatest accomplishment? What do you wish you had done? What are you sorry you did? Who do you have to say thank you to in your life? Who are you most thankful for?
And so you capture the answers to these and the life celebration, but you offer some other services too that help to capture some of these. And then what you got autobiography services and
we have that. We have that.
Yeah.
So we have what I think is a pretty complete set of services. The part about capturing just those pieces, right? The bucket list and the things that you're most proud of. We have a tool. It's called a Legacy Kit, and we have a Legacy coaching service. And the two things combined kind of form the basis of our operations. And then we add additional services to complement it from there. So the Legacy Kit is essentially a workbook. So it's a workbook that it's used as a guide to walk somebody through planning out their legacy. What we do in the process of coaching people through this is we educate them about things they could do. Because inevitably,
options. Okay, options.
it's
Right.
all about
Options.
options, yeah.
Right.
We will teach people things they don't know. We'll teach them some things that they could do if they planned ahead, that if they don't plan it ahead, just can't happen.
Right.
So that's the value of the tool, is that we capture all the stuff in one place. Now, part of that is getting your important documents together, right? So if you have life insurance policies, you have a will, you have critical documents that somebody, once we cross over, somebody has to pick up the pieces.
Right.
The problem is that if you don't plan this stuff out, not only do they not know where to find the pieces, but they don't know what the puzzle looks like.
Right.
He says that so nicely, but it's a mess.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
exactly.
is.
And I know people that
A lot
have
of
spent
people
4,
gone
5,
through
6
it.
years trying to find the storage box
Yeah.
or the, that piece of paper that will enable them to go, retrieve the investments or all sorts of things. And it's a mess
And
for
very
whoever's left
stressful.
behind.
Very stressful for the
stressful.
family.
At a time when that's really not what you want to have to be focusing on.
And
You're
so
grieving.
you see people dealing with this stuff for years after somebody's passed on, right? They still have the house. They still have, somebody has to pay the bills that that are still there,
Right.
and somebody has to step in and do it. So what we do is we offer the tool. We offer, in addition to the workbook, we offer a storage folio. And inside of this go all of the critical documents.
Oh, wonderful.
Right.
So they're all in one place.
They're all in one place. So
Okay.
this has some very important information, but it also has some very sensitive information. So once this is completed, with the help of one of our legacy coaches, this gets tucked safely away in a safe. And
In like a safety deposit box at the bank or
well,
something?
we don't really recommend a safe deposit box. And the reason is if somebody were to pass away on a Friday and they can't get access to the safe deposit box until Monday, then you know, all those 48 hours are very, very important for what we do.
Wow, see, now I wouldn't even have thought of that.
Yeah.
Especially if all the bank information and the key to the safe deposit box is
Right.
in there. Like it's supposed to be.
It happens. It does happen.
So you might put it in a fireproof safe
Yes.
or...
Yes.
And they're inexpensive, right?
And
you can
hopefully
get a small
they'll
one.
tell somebody where it is.
Right, right.
And the combination to
and
it.
the combination
right?
to it.
So that's the basics, the building block for our services. Now there's a lot of other services as you start to look at what we're doing with people to plan it out early in their lives. These services are planned out in advance, and as we move closer and closer to that time, then we actually help to fulfill those services. But the Legacy Kit and coaching is a good starting place. Actually taking the time to plan out your life celebration or your wedding plan, as it were, is another service that we add to it. We have an autobiography service that basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to encourage people to tell their stories, and we capture those stories and we communicate those stories to future generations. So if I use my father as an example, just like yours, right? He's lived a really exciting life, but he doesn't talk about it.
Right.
And I know the stories because I've heard him tell those stories, but my children don't know these stories, and their children don't know these stories. By capturing this now, whether it be in written or audio or videotape form, they're going to be able to hear these stories later, and they'll know a lot more about our own history and our legacy, so to speak.
And that's what you call your autobiography.
Yeah, we call
Services,
it,
yeah.
it's the story of you, right? And we capture it as an autobiography.
And then you also have this really interesting other thing you offer is the portraiture.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So what we're trying to do is there are a lot of visual people out there, right? And if you think about what's the essence of a person, when somebody passes on, they may be 90 years old, they may be 95 years old, but that's not the person they remember. That's not who they think they are, right? They remember back to a time when they had a lot of life and vitality and energy. So there may be a time or a picture that really captures the essence of who they are back from when they were 40, as an example. So what we do is we have a contract artist who's outstanding, and what he does is he takes a photograph, or he'll actually, he'll capture an image of the person, and then he'll find an object or a symbol that really captures the essence of who they are. And he'll blend those two things through some unique airbrush technique where he makes a portraiture that captures the essence of a person in a snapshot.
It's very
And we have an
interesting.
example of one, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the example, one of the examples we're showing is a photograph of me, and it's blended in with the tattoo that I have on my arm. Now, it's a very meaningful tattoo. There's some deep meaning, and it really gets to the core of who I am. So what he's done is he's blended the two things into one image, and I have this. It's a 2-foot by 4-foot painting up on my wall, and I can enjoy it now. And when my time comes, that will be the image that I want people to remember.
Interesting.
Now,
It's
for
a very
portraiture,
interesting idea.
thank you. We do other stuff for portraiture too.
We've got the dogs.
Well, yeah. So the picture of the dogs
Could be
is
loved ones, people's loved ones.
Oh,
you know?
yeah. I mean, so many
Definitely.
people relate to their pets, right? Their pets are their children.
Yes, absolutely.
So the picture that we're showing is our friend Michelle has a lot of dogs, and she
Yeah.
loves them like her own children.
Yeah.
So he got an individual snapshot of each of the dogs, and he blended it into a single image that
Like
captures
a
them.
collage of dogs.
And he gave it to her, and
Such
she
a
broke
great
down and
idea.
cried.
Oh, I bet.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Great idea.
So we can do that.
Okay, that is a very unique kind of
The
service
idea
that
is
you offer.
that there are all sorts of things that can be done, that you can really be creative in your thinking,
Yeah.
and we will do our best
to do whatever people
to
want.
help
yeah.
create it. Yeah.
Well, Tamara, tell us more about your role as grief counselor. What are some of the experiences that you've had that you can really say have definitely made a difference for people? I'm sure there's been many, many.
There have been many.
You could just pick one. Or
But
two
you know
good
what, I have to
stories.
circle it back around to, I have found that when people have something like a legacy, that's been left for them, something of that individual. That's the most important part about the healing after the death of someone that you love. And when you have pieces of significance, pieces of memory, and reminders of their love for you and your love for them, an event, a place and time, that is crucial to that grief process and the memory of them.
And that's the messages for loved ones that
Yes.
you also offer, right?
Sure.
So how's that different than what you've already talked about?
Messages for loved ones are a chance to say your last words to somebody. So I'll use myself as an example, right? For some of the things I do, I travel a lot. And it's possible that something could go wrong on one of these trips, right? So I may not make it home one day. I'd like to think that we all have all kinds of time to say the things we want to say to the people we love, but sometimes we don't. So what the messages to loved ones is all about is you sit down with one of our coaches and you think through who are the people who are most important in your life. And you think through what would you want to say to them. And it's not a question of picking out the words, it's just what's the heartfelt meaning behind what you want to say. So we help them structure that, and then whether if they're comfortable with writing the messages or audio taping the messages, or better yet even videotaping the messages, we help them capture those messages, put it on a DVD, and put it in your portfolio. So when the time comes, if I don't make it home from that trip, somebody pulls this out and gives my daughter the DVD with her name on it, and she gets to hear the message of what I would like to say to her, because I won't get the chance. So it's an insurance policy in some ways, and it's something that you can update, every time you think about them. You can add something to the message, you can update the message with a new one, and when the time comes, they're going to hear something that comes from the heart, and I won't have a chance to say it at that point, right?
That would be quite a powerful gift to receive upon the passing of someone I was very close to.
It's life-giving.
I can only
Ultimately.
imagine.
And also we encourage our clients to review and update both their legacy and even their, whether it's autobiography or, audio message or whatever it is, to really take a look at it periodically and update it.
So as a grief counselor, at what point do you step in with a family?
I can step in immediately. I have many tools that
So maybe
can,
even when they first hear about someone maybe has a terminal
right.
illness, whether they're young or old,
Yes.
at that point you
Yes.
might, or
Yes, so I can, if it is a terminal illness, I get together with the family and we talk about some tools that they can incorporate to just prepare, do some self-care, and the communication level is huge at that point. There's much to be said and much to think about, and also a point of stillness where you just hold space for that person you love so much and take this ride with them. It's an enormous gift.
Something I can add to that, right, is in addition to being a grief counselor, she's also a certified celebrant. So we're both certified celebrants.
Yes.
And
what
a
does that
celebrant-
mean? Yeah, what is a
Ooh.
celebrant?
Go right ahead.
Sorry.
Well, a celebrant is somebody who's been trained to help celebrate somebody's life after they pass. So what we do is we work with the families. A traditional celebrant will work with the families of somebody who's passed, and we'll spend time with them as an intact group, a very intimate, intact group, and we'll encourage them to share stories. And what we're doing is we're giving them a safe place to grieve, because families do need to grieve when somebody passes. And by doing it in a very small, kind of a controlled environment, they can say the
Intimate.
things they might not
Yeah.
say in public.
Yeah.
So what we in our roles as celebrants, we will do that, right? And one of the things Tamara can do in that capacity is she can find out who in that family is most affected by this, and she's there not only as the celebrant but also as a grief coach to help them through it. But on top of that, on Peaceful Crossings, we modify the role a little bit in that we involve our celebrants in the planning. So as somebody plans out their own legacy, we can get engaged with them while they're still alive, and they can identify for us who are the people they're most worried about, right? So if they know that somebody's going to take their passing very hard, they can give us that heads up, and we can get them in touch with Tamara in advance. So it's a bit more of a proactive approach.
That's
And
really
as time goes
interesting.
on, it's a long process.
I would think that as people hear about your services and what you offer, you get a lot of, oh, I wish I had known about you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
when, you know,
definitely.
we do.
Yeah.
XYZ, yeah.
Yeah, we do.
I'm sure that that's a pretty common experience. What about when, now, you're talking about, this is your business, this is what you talk about all day long, and you know, healthy, strapping, handsome young man. Do you ever have people's response to this saying, "Ew, gross," you know, or does it, you know, don't you get kind of creeped out by that? Or, you know, how's that for you, talking about death all the time? How do you respond when you...
How do you
Well,
respond
first-
to
Yeah,
that?
how do you feel about
First, I
that?
really didn't think you'd ask the question that way, Jeannie. So here's the $5 I promised you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So you know what? It's interesting, but like we said, people have this reaction when they hear this for the first time. It's like, well, okay, well, what did that mean? And what we'll find is people who are interested, people who really want to know what it means, will ask us, well, where does that go? But then there's another big group of people out there who don't really want to talk about it, right? And they're not ready yet. And so they're not going to engage. So it's not hard at all to, at a glance, figure out who really is interested and who isn't. And so the conversations we do have tend to be very engaging and very interesting. And we don't get a whole lot of morose stuff at all, at least not so far.
No, actually there can be some really good humor around it too, and
Really?
people come up with some pretty interesting perspectives. But the idea is that the conversation and to get them talking about it. The whole fear of death is because we don't talk about it. It is the final taboo subject. And how sad is that? Most other cultures do approach death in a way that is either, you know, very spiritual, or it has a, you know, a religious ceremony about it, or maybe within their family they've talked. And our country, our culture doesn't talk about it all that much. And we don't like to admit that maybe we are mortal. So
Yeah.
to plan, to view your life as, okay, what if I die tomorrow? What would I do differently? What would I want to do with my time if I had only 6 months to live?
Okay.
Ask the question. It brings amazing responses,
It does.
because you would do something entirely different if you had only 6 months to live. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Maybe not you.
So I am
Not
sold.
me, not you.
So
but
if I am
lots of
sold,
you.
and if our viewers want to know more about how they can get information, what should they do?
The easiest way is to go to the website. The website's it's pretty informative.
Peacefulcrossings.com?
It's peacefulcrossings.com.
Okay.
And then the phone number is the main phone number is 734-660-8622.
Very good.
And if you have questions when you hit the website, all you have to do is go to the Contact Us page and you can submit a question. You will get an answer very quickly.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Cal and
You're welcome.
Tamara, for being here
This has been
tonight.
delightful
Thanks.
to be
I really
here. Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Jeannie.
And thank you, Ann Arbor, for joining us. Remember to tune in the second and fourth Tuesday of each month at 10:30 p.m. or look for rebroadcasts of Jeannie on the Beat at various times throughout the week. Ciao, Ann Arbor.